Hey guys, I got a great question today online about interview anxiety. Basically, how do you present yourself as best as you can in an interview situation? Let go of some of the anxiety, some of the thoughts that will crop up in your head about trying to perform in some way for this tough crowd. And I thought I'd share some of my tips. I've done a lot of interviews. So, a quick background on me. I've run 36 businesses, so I have done a lot of hiring. I have read thousands of CVs and done hundreds of face-to-face interviews, probably around 400, I'd guess, where I'm sitting as the interviewer. I've probably done another 200 as the interviewee. And the reason is that a number of my businesses were consulting businesses. So I'm constantly in front of clients in the interviewee role, being questioned about my skills, my competency, can I solve their problems? And in the tech field, that involved a combination of people skills, technical smarts, problem solving abilities, management abilities, communication skills. There's a huge range of things to be challenged on. And I've developed a perspective that I didn't think was unique, but the more I talk to people, the more I realize that those experiences summed up into a worldview around interviews that has really, really helped me. And I actually really, really enjoy interviews now. So I'm going to share a few things that I found really, really helpful. Now, you can't see the marker board I've got over here. I've actually got quite a few notes on it. The first thing I wanted to address was anxiety itself. So, in my experience, I'm normally a very socially anxious person most of my life. It's something I've only really directly dealt with in the past couple of years. So, during all these interviews, I was a very introverted person who just would normally freak out on stage or in the spotlight. But in interviews, I always felt comfortable, and I find that actually quite interesting. It tells me that my mind was in a different place where it felt safe. It felt safe. And part of the reason that I realized I ended up in that space, I started interviewing when I was really, really young. Um, I started computer programming probably when I was 11 years old, and I would go find clients. Companies would seek me out because I had skills that no one else had. You couldn't learn this stuff in universities, didn't exist yet as a field. So, so most of the time, my job was really easy. It was simply answering questions about what I knew. I didn't feel like I was being evaluated, and I felt like there was nothing for me to lose if they said no. I still lived with my parents. I didn't care whether they wanted to hire me or not. It was just kind of an interesting, fun experience, right? And that was important. That nothing to lose mentality is very, very foundational to being able to be comfortable in any kind of confrontational situation. That means an interview, that means a date, that means any situation where you'd like a particular outcome to happen, but you need to remain detached from it. It's a distant goal, but it's not something that you're trying to make happen, and that your inability to make that happen will send you into a downward spiral of depression and self-loathing. So your goal here is to simply present yourself in the best way possible. And there are some very easy things that you can do internally to make that happen. So there are two general categories of things that I notice myself doing, and I'm going to give them names simply because it will help give us some frame and context to this. I've never had names for them before. There are two techniques that I use. One is leading, is that I'm not passively involved in the interview. I'm more or less running it, at least as much as the interviewer is running it. In a sense, I'm interviewing them, and I'm interviewing myself. My goal is to help make their job as easy as possible. Ultimately, that's all of our goals as an employee or as a contractor or as a consultant inside a company. Is our job is to make their life easier. So why not start in the interview? So that means that from the moment I shake their hands, I'm there to help all of us answer two questions. Am I a good fit for them? And are they a good fit for me? Those are the only two things we need to know. If I can answer those two questions, then they have everything they need to make their decision, and I have everything that I need to make my decision. Because this is two of us, right? We both have to agree that this is something that sounds good. It's not just about me getting a nice salary from them. This has to be a job that I'll enjoy, that I can succeed at, that a year later I'm not going to be, oh my God, what did I do? And I'm bald because I ripped all my hair out. That's not what I'm looking for. It's not worth a year of your life to do that. So I want to know if this is a good fit as much as they do. The second, we'll go into that quite a bit more in a second, but the second thing that I notice that I'm doing is I call it fast forwarding. Fast forwarding to me is jumping forward to a place in time in my mind where I'm already an employee at this company. These are my coworkers. This is my boss. These are my friends. And this interview should feel as close as possible to what a team meeting would feel like 6 months from now. So I seek to establish that. I seek to lead that straight away. Is that, hey, I want to know who everyone is. Who's my boss? What do you do? What do you do? I want to meet my team. Who's my department head? What does my workspace look like? What's this going to be like? How do you run your day? Starting time, ending time, breaks. How do you do everything? What's life going to be like if I'm here? And I immediately start doing that. I notice I do this in other places in my life too. It's been a very generally powerful technique. Even simple things like if I'm flying somewhere to Moscow, for example, I'll set my watch ahead to Moscow time the moment I get to the airport. And the reasoning is I want to start making the time zone transition straight away. So I walk into the airport, I set my time ahead, and I look, oh, it's dinner time. All right, let's go eat dinner. And I literally start living my life as though I'm already in Moscow. And that makes the transition so much easier. It's a 19-hour flight there for me when I lived in Chicago. So that's 19 extra hours to deal with jet lag transition, right? I found that very, very helpful. I do the same thing if I'm out on a date. Is the question in my head is, how would I treat this person if she was my girlfriend? I'd treat her with respect. I'd listen to what she wanted. I'd invite her to engage in deep discussions. I'd make suggestions about what I'd like to do, but I'd want to hear what she's interested in. I treat her like my girlfriend. Make sure she's not cold. Give her my jacket if she's cold. These aren't date things. These are girlfriend things. And that's the way I look at interviews. The interview is no different an experience meeting with those people, meeting with that boss in that place than working there is. So think of it as though you're just coming into a regular day of work. It just happens to be your first day or day -1, however you want to think of it. Put yourself in that mindset. I find that very, very helpful. Let's go a little bit deeper into the entire area of leading, because there's a lot to say here. There are a lot of questions that I want to answer for both of us in my interview. I think of it as my interview. I'm there to find out about them, and I'm there to tell them about me. So I've got two categories of questions in my leading, in my interviewing. One is this a good fit for me? And the other is this a good fit for them? Let's start with them, as we normally would in an interview situation. I want to, rather than trying to perform for them and convince them that, yes, I'm the best bet, I'm the best guy you've seen, you should totally bet on me. I want to help them answer the question, am I the right fit? Because if I'm not, I really don't want to be in a situation where I feel completely lost, out of my depth, dealing with technologies I don't know and I don't like, working with a team that doesn't support me, working with a boss that doesn't understand what I do, working in miserable conditions like a night shift or something like that. This is not a good fit. I'm not a good fit for that. So if I discover something that is not a good fit, I want to surface it straight away. So I'm essentially helping them lead the interview. I'm making their job easy from the very beginning. We are answering and seeking these questions together. One of the questions that I'm seeking is, can I deliver what they need? Usually, I'm brought in to solve technical problems, or I'm brought in to solve some business problem by building a technical solution, helping them find a technical solution, or leading their team to construct a technical solution. So there's technology, which I get, and then there's the business side, which I may not know their industry. So I need to walk in there wide open, say, look, I don't know anything about stock markets, how they operate on the inside, but I'm willing to learn. Are you okay with the fact that I don't know anything yet? What types of resources and support can you give me to learn this? What types of team, education, or classes can I take either at work or online or somewhere else where I can make certain that I'm going to be able to deliver what you need as well as possible? I want to surface that. And I want to set those expectations at the very beginning. Like, look, if you want me to deliver this, that's not just me locking me in a closet and I deliver it. That's you support me. Everything that I run into that's a problem, I may need to come to you for resources. I may need to come to you for new team members that we need. I may need to come to you just to get your opinion and feedback on which direction you would prefer to go for the business's objectives. These kinds of things are going to happen. Set that expectation at the beginning. You are part of a team. Figure out who your team is and what your part is in that team. So, questions: can I deliver what they need? Do I have the skills? Do I have the experience? Do I know their industry? Do I know their technology? Do I know their platforms? Will they give me the resources that I need? Is another big question. Oftentimes I'm brought in to deal with something that the reason I'm brought in as a consultant, I'm quite high priced, which means that they couldn't find an employee to do it, which means this is probably not an easy thing to do. It wasn't something they could find someone off the shelf. It's either very tight deadline, or it's quite an advanced and complex problem, or in several cases I've been brought in to deal with a failed project that they'd spent $10 million on and it had failed in 18 months. And now they've got 3 months left to deploy it. So this is a Hail Mary pass, right? They're desperate to get someone to fix this problem, but they've burned a year and a half of their time and most of their money, and this puts them in a very bad situation. So that's immediately what I need to know is, look, you're asking me to do something epic here. I can probably do it, but I need to know that I've got your support. I need to know that I can have the team that I need. I need to know that if I need an expert in this thing, that I could walk out and hire them and have them in here tomorrow doing interviews. I need to know that I've got your ear when there's a problem with either the requirements or the technologies or the platform or support from the sysadmins or anything, right? I need to know that I'm supported and respected, or I cannot help them. That's what it comes out to. No different than, say, being a doctor. You walk up to a patient, they want your help. But if they're not going to let you give them help, if they're not going to let you give them medicine, if they're not going to take medicine, if they're not going to follow your prescription, there's very little that you can do. So I need to know that this is a two-way relationship. I need to know that both ends are engaged. Resources I usually need: technology, sometimes budget, definitely tools. I need to know what development environment they use, what technologies do they rely on? Do I have the ability to bring in my own technologies so that I don't have a learning curve to deal with? Particularly in the case of a tight deadline, that's essential. Do I have the team? Who is my team? What do they know? What's their experience level? That's very, very important. And for me as a consultant, because I come in for a set period of time to deliver a specific deliverable, I need to absolutely know what is that deliverable. Because quite often, it's not just solving the problem. It's not just building a system and walking away. It's building a system that their internal staff knows how to maintain long term. Now, that's a different requirement, isn't it? Because now that's training and architecture and team management and formation and making sure they're communicating and tracking everything that they need. There's a whole nother layer to solving this problem than just delivering some code. So make sure you understand what the expectations are of you. Define those in the interview. This is an important question to figure out if you are a good fit for this role, if it's something you want to do, if it's something you have the skills and knowledge to do. And of course, will they support me? Typically, that means knowing your boss, knowing your team, and knowing your client. Your client isn't always your boss, right? It might be an outside company, like an actual paying client, or it might be an internal department. Either way, make the interview center on those questions, because if you don't ever if you're not able to answer those questions, you really can't answer whether or not you're a good fit here. If you don't know who the client is, or whether you can work with them, or whether you can push back, a common situation for me is I'll get a set of requirements and they're very vague. So first thing I have to do is nail them down. And then I go back to the client, and what I need to know is, if I tell them this requirement here is really not going to help you achieve anything you want, and it's going to cost an extra $5 million and take an extra 6 months, I need to know that they're going to listen. I need to know they're going to say, you're right, let's take that off. Because my job is to hit this deadline in this budget with this team. I need to know that I've got some control over what they're asking me to do, and that they are able to support that to make sure that we hit our objectives. So these are all very important parts of me figuring out, and them figuring out, whether I am a good fit. Now, what's really interesting about this process is you'll find that if you're leading the interview, they get to sit back and relax. A lot of interviewers are not experienced. They don't really know what to ask, so they go through a script. But the questions that they're trying to answer: can this guy do the job? Will he stay around until it's finished? Will he show up for work on time? Does he know what's written on his CV? These are the kinds of questions that they're trying to ask. You can answer them without even waiting for them to ask. Your goal is to figure that out as well. Now, category 2, is this good for me? There are certain things that I'm looking for as well, but they're pretty simple. Am I being paid fairly? Is this the right amount of money for the kind of work that I'm doing, for the level of stress that I'm going to engage in to get this done on a certain deadline? Are there better jobs out there that I might be more interested in? So money is a characteristic, and you should go ahead and lead that discussion. That's probably a whole separate podcast, but basically part of it's market fairness, but also part of it is the specific situation that they've created here. If they've got a very tight deadline, or very tight resources, or extremely strict requirements, that's worth more. That's going to create a lot of extra work for you, a lot of late nights, a lot of stress. Make sure you don't walk into a situation blindly just because I need a job. You'll hate it. Another thing is, am I going to gain good experience from this job? I want to grow. I don't just want to walk away with more money in the bank. I want to walk away with new experiences. I want to walk away with new skills. I want to walk away knowing new technologies. I want projects that I can list in my portfolio that I'm proud of. That, wow, we took this little system which didn't work and we rebuilt it, and it saves the company $100 million a year, and it opened up entirely new markets. I want a story to tell that's as exciting for me as it is for the company that I just worked for, and it's just as exciting to the next company that I'm going to go in and consult for. So I'm looking for that experience. Looking to build my portfolio. I'm looking to learn as much as I can all the time. So I'm not afraid to learn new technologies. If there's a new technology, great. If it's something in the vein of where I want to develop myself, I'm totally in. At the same time, I probably wouldn't be keen to jump into an entirely new technology stack overnight unless there was plenty of time for the learning curve. I don't want to walk in blind and having absolutely no idea what's going on, because I can't guarantee any kind of security around deliverables if I can't watch and oversee what the team is doing at a technical level. And also for me, because I have a technical background, I like to be able to fill in the gaps for my team. If one of my team members gets stuck, I help cover them. And if the technology is something I'm completely unfamiliar with, not only won't I know they're having troubles, but there's nothing I can really do except try to find someone else to come in and try to fix that problem. Another thing I'm looking for is relationships. So relationships while I'm there working at the company. Will I enjoy it? Will I have fun working there? Will I have a good team? But also, what are the relationships I'm going to have after I move on from this company someday? What types of bosses do I have who I might end up working with again? What types of clients will I be working with who I might be interested in talking to on projects later? What kinds of coworkers might I end up calling into other projects later, or they end up calling me into other projects later? Those relationships you build are very important. And there are a lot of examples of that, but one of the ways you can look at that is one of my first jobs ever was for Sony, and I was in university at the time. I was 19 years old, brought into Sony to do network engineering. Now, network engineering was not my thing, but I could crawl through ceilings and floors and run cables because I was a scrawny 19-year-old kid, and no one else would do it, but they would pay me to do that, and so I did that. But as quickly as I could, that got me into Sony. That got me a relationship with a huge multinational which had tons of resources and tons of opportunity. Once I was in the company, I ended up switching jobs within 6 months to a full-time special projects programmer. I had to demonstrate that to them once I was on the inside. When I was on the outside, there was no way I could convince them of that. I didn't have a degree yet. They didn't need any C++ programmers who could program Windows. So it wasn't until I was in that I could see that opportunity and that I could take advantage of it as it happened. That relationship with Sony, though, was the key. That was what enabled me to move into a much more interesting position. And then that was leveraged into all sorts of other interesting things that happened afterwards. So definitely value the relationships as well. So again, on the is it good for me? Key questions you want to answer for yourself. Am I going to enjoy it? Is this going to be fun, right? I don't want to hate my job. Is the money good? Am I going to get experience and education out of this? Am I learning anything and am I going to walk away better? Will I have a portfolio? Anything I can add to my portfolio, which increases my value as I move on to the next challenge? And what types of relationships am I going to have that may become very, very valuable to me in the future? Just to recap, lead the interview. Take control. From the moment you walk in, treat it as, I'm working here. My job today, right now, is to figure out if we're a good fit. You'll find that it gives you something to focus on that you can do well. You know yourself better than anyone. Don't be afraid to point out weak areas. I think it's very important to set expectations, so be very truthful and honest. Don't try to perform or bend the truth. If you don't know something, say, you know what? I don't have much experience with that. Can I learn on the job? I'd love to learn. Be straight up. Let them know your strengths. Let them know your weaknesses as well. Because the last thing you want to do is end up in the job, expected to deliver something, and now you're scrambling to figure out how the heck you're going to do that. So if you find yourself regularly in interviews stressing out, try these things. If you have something that I have not mentioned here that's a problem for you, I'd love to hear about it, because interviewing should be a lot of fun. Interviewing is all about exploring a new opportunity with new people. Why wouldn't that be fun? It should feel a bit like a date. There should be excitement, there should be new adventure, there should be all sorts of possibility, and most of all, you should both be having fun in this situation. If you're not, something's not right. Let me know.